So, thank you all for having me here. I absolutely appreciate it. I gotta ask my producer, where is his Trump hat? Where's your Trump hat?
In my bag.
What?
Want me to go get it?
What?
It's in my bag.
You said you're gonna wear it.
Wow. You want me to go get it?
Wait a minute.
I'm busy filming.
That's Nick, my radio producer guy. That's Nick. He's the best. Several people are here from listening to my radio show. Can I see you? Amazing. Thank you all for coming out. Absolutely appreciate it.
What number?
You can go to jlptalk.com. Right, Nick?
Yeah, you'll find everywhere to listen there.
jlptalk.com. Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time. We also have a TV show called The Fallen State, F-A-L-L-E-N, thefallenstate.tv. Check that out. You'll love it. Mamma mia, hola, si, senor. Gracias. So I'm going to tell you how we got started and then where we are now, right? So I grew up in Alabama on a plantation under the Jim Crow laws. I was born there. And I remember for colors only signs, for white only signs, and we couldn't go into the white people bathroom. I remember going to a movie theater once down in Eufaula, Alabama, and the blacks had to sit up in the balcony because we couldn't sit with the whites. But I was okay with that because I thought we had better seating up there. I really did. I didn't think of anything being wrong with it. And so, so I grew up picking cotton and all that kind of stuff. And I'm telling this to some people who may not have heard this. The one thing that we had going for ourselves is that we had family. You know, I had my parents around, my grandparents, and we all worked. I have never not worked in my life. I remember growing up, we had to be responsible around the house, you know, cleaning the house, keeping it clean, cutting the wood for the winter, and stuff like that. And then when I got older, we started picking cotton. Anybody ever pick cotton? You have not lived until you pick cotton. So that's why I'm about plantation. And I'm especially taking all the black people back to the plantation. They gotta learn how to work. They got to learn. And so we picked cotton. I remember once, I was around the 10th or 11th grade, and it was time to plant the crop. And I didn't want to miss school that day. And I was like pounding. I told my grandfather, I don't want to stay home today. I want to go to school. He's like, no, you got to stay home and break the ground for the crop. I'm like, I don't want to. And I was pouting and pouting. So he made me go out anyway to do it. And so I hooked up the mule to the plow and stuff like that. And I made the mule take off, and the plow ran over my foot and just cut my foot open. It was all red and bleeding. And I told my grandfather, Dad, look at my feet. My foot is bleeding. He said, well, if you had done what I told you to do without pouting, it wouldn't have happened. I'm like, what? And he made me plow the field anyway with the open foot. I'm like, wow, if I had acted stupidly, this would not have happened. And I'm grateful that my grandfather did that. I'm grateful because it helped to make me the man I am today. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as racism. I had never heard the word racism. It did not exist. It was about treating people the way you would like to be treated. All people. Black people knew in those days that there was good and evil in all races, all culture. And so we were taught to treat people the way that we would like to be treated growing up. And my great-great-grandfather was killed in his bed because he ran that plantation at one time. And there was a black guy who was fired from another plantation. So he came over and asked my great-great-grandfather, could he work for him? He said yes. And the white people from that plantation came over and told my great-grandfather, you can't hire him, you have to let him go. And my great-great-grandfather said, no, I'm not letting him go, I'm gonna keep him. And so they came one night with a gun, with guns. And in those days, in those times, you were allowed to have guns, all right? And so my great-grandfather went for his gun, and he ran them off. And his wife, my great-great-grandmother, saw the gun there, so she took the gun away. And they came back again, and they was able to kill him in his bed. And so they were asking her, why did you remove the gun? She said, well, I thought he may get hurt or hurt himself. Isn't that crazy? Don't ever listen to a woman. Every time you listen to a woman, you're going to suffer. If you doubt me, ask Adam. The lady's not laughing. And so what happened was, I grew up at 18. I moved to California, to Los Angeles, because we were raised to know that once you turn 18, you're out of here. You're not staying here. And I used to ask my grandmother, because she would remind me, all right, do what you want, but you, where am I going to go? And she said, I don't know, and I don't care. You're leaving here. And at 18, I graduated on May 22nd. And in July, I left home. I moved up to Indiana. I worked for 2 weeks at Endless Steel Mill just to make enough money to move to Los Angeles. I made one paycheck, I quit, I moved to LA, and I've been in and out of there ever since. So that was 1968. And it wasn't until LA that I started to hear the word racism, and that white people hated black people and all that kind of crap, right? And so I started listening to people like Louis Farrakhan and Jesse Jackson and the NAACP. You ever heard of Jesse Jackson?
Yes.
How about Maxine Waters? How would you like to be married to that one? Maxine Waters makes you want to shoot the dog. And so I started hearing all this stuff, and the first time in my life I started to resent white people because I believed them. I thought what they were saying, because I was like 18, 19, 20 at best, and I thought because they were the so-called leaders of these people, I thought what they were saying was true. And I believed them. And that's why you have to be careful what you believe, because whatever you believes in you, and it controls you, because we live by faith. And so whatever you believe, that's what's going to control you. And for the first time in my life, I started hating white people. I started blaming them for my situations, right? And I realized, wow, that's interesting. I never hated white people before. And my life went to hell in a handbasket for hating, because you become like what you hate. And then so finally one day I asked God to, make a long story short, I asked God to let me see myself, because I realized if white people hate me, how come they're not hating the black people who are telling me that they hate black people? These people live in Howard Hall, they're getting married, they live in gated communities, they have buku money, they black. I'm like, they black, how come they're not suffering? And so, long story short, God allowed me to see, because I didn't really know myself. And at the time, I had confessed Jesus as Lord and Savior. The preacher said, do you believe Jesus died for you? I'm like, yeah. Do you believe he rose? Yes. Then you're saved. I'm like, cool, okay. I did it, but nothing worked. I still had doubt, I had fear, I had insecurity. I couldn't deal with women in the right way. How many men cannot deal with women? Come on. How many married to their mama? The men won't say. And so I had all this anger, but yet I believed in Jesus, right? And so I would go to church. The last church I attended was Fred Price Church, Christian Center in Los Angeles. And Fred Price knew the Bible. He knew the Bible like 90 going north. And I would work in that church. I worked on the men's fellowship committee and all that kind of stuff. But yet I had conflict inside. And I would ask the preachers after the church service, what is wrong with me? You know, I pray, I give tithes. At that time, they had taught me to pray in tongues and all that stuff. But yet I had this fear and doubt and worry and insecurity. And the only way I could deal with a woman is that I had to kiss up to her. You know, I had to be weak. Anybody ever been weak with a woman? I had to do what she wanted, right? I remember whenever I dated a woman, can you see me right here? I'm so black, I'm gonna go to the I'm sure I stand on the light. And so whenever I wanted to deal with a woman, I remember I was really doing some serious dating, and I was dating this woman, and she really had control of me because she was so pretty. She was light-skinned, she had good hair, and so I really liked her, right? And I remember whenever I wanted something from her, or when she wanted something from me, she would control me. She would come home if she wanted something, she would say, "Oh, you're so nice. I really like you." And she would make dinner. She never made dinner until she wanted something. But she would make dinner, and then she would say to me, "You are so nice. I really like you." And my ego would get all puffed up because the ego loves lies, right? And then when we sit down and start eating, she would say, "Oh, I saw this meat coat down at Sears, and it only cost $200. I really want that coat." And I'm like, "No, I can't get you a coat. We can't afford it." And right away she would get mad. And once she get mad, she would say, "You're no good. I don't like you. You're so cheap. My mama don't even like you, right? At first her mother loved me. But all of a sudden mama don't like me." And I'm like, I get mad at her. The moment I get mad at her, she controlled me. Now I have to give her the money for the coat so that she can feel better and I can feel better. Anybody ever gone through it? Somebody lying to me. No, I ain't the only one. But anyway, it's okay, man. And so I would give her the money and then she would be happy. But then I'll be broke and unhappy. But anyway, it was like that. So long story short, I finally asked God to let me see myself because I didn't know myself. And the Bible says, "Know thyself." And I did not know myself. And so I asked him one day, I said, "You know what? Let me see myself. I don't really know myself." So I forgot I had asked. And one day I was getting dressed in the mirror, and I saw at just an instant, I saw this dark spirit in me. And it wasn't like a night darkness, it was like a wicked darkness inside of me. I'm like, "Whoa, I didn't know that was in me." And so I was praying one day, and this time I said, "I'm going to pray without asking anything, because I really just want to know the truth." And so God allowed me to see that I resented my mother. And my mother had tried to turn me away from my father because she got pregnant and they were not married. And when I was growing up, it was an embarrassment to get married and get pregnant out of wedlock. Black people had a system of morality at that time. And so if you got pregnant out of wedlock, you would have to go to Indiana until you had your baby. And then they bring you back down to Alabama. They're like, "Where's Susie?" "I don't know, I think she went out of town." And Susie come back with a baby. "Whose baby is that?" "That's Susie, baby. Where did she get it from?" You know, it was an embarrassment. My worst nightmare was to make a baby when I started dating, was young and started dating, because I knew I would have to have a shotgun wedding. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as abortion and homosexuality. If a man even switch, you know how some men switch? You would say, "Oh, that look like a sissy." You remember that? So that even the gay people had to walk straight. Because black people would not tolerate that. Not tolerate that at all. The one thing that I noticed about black Americans during those days, they would not tolerate sin. They would not tolerate you being mean to other people. They would not tolerate you hating your neighbor. That's all out the window now. And so God allowed me to see that I resented my mother who tried to turn me away from the father. The worst thing, I'm telling you, for boys and girls, men and women, the worst thing that can happen to you is to be turned away from your earthly father. When they turn you away from your father, they turn you away from God. Because whether we like it or not, accept it or not, know it or not, the men represent the sons of God. They may be beta males. Everybody know what a beta male is, right? Beta! Who don't know what a beta male is? Oh, that's amazing. Do you know what a beta male is?
No.
A beta male, do you know what a beta male is? What is a beta male?
Well, you got your alpha males who take control, and then the beta males are the subservient ones who don't stand up for themselves.
The weak ones.
Yeah.
Beta males are weak ones. Weak men, I used to be one. Beta. I even had a beta baby. I was so weak, right? And so, long story short, my mother came to LA to visit her sister, And at that time I was about 38 years old, right? And so I knew I had to forgive her because in the scriptures it says, forgive and you shall be forgiven. And no one can enter into the kingdom of heaven unless he or she forgive first. You can read the Bible till the cows come home. You can whoop and holler. You can pay your tithes and offering. But if you have one little iota of anger in you, Satan is your daddy. And you're not entering into the kingdom of heaven because that nature is the nature of Satan. Love is the nature of God. Perfect love. And love, the real love, has no feelings, no thoughts, no judgment. It's just God's nature working through you, right? And you'll be able to see injustice, speak up about it, but don't hate it, right? So long story short, 38, I drove over to see my mother because I knew I had to apologize for resenting her. It was wrong what she did, but I was wrong for hating her because it was keeping me out of the kingdom of heaven. Even though I was reading the Bible, going to church and all that stuff. So I'm 38 years old and driving over there, I'm like scared. I'm like, what am I afraid of, right? And so I get there and I'm walking up 2 or 3 steps and I can barely breathe. 38-year-old grown man can barely breathe. And I thought, why am I so afraid of her? But I remember when I would ask about my father, she would seem impatient. She didn't like him. She would say he's no good. And I resented her for that. And because I resented my mother, I became just like her. I had her mindset, her emotions. I had doubt and fear and all that stuff. I thought and felt like a woman, a female. And so I said, wow, that's interesting. So I get up the steps and get into the house, and she and her sister was sitting there having fun and laughing. Have you ever seen black women come together? They party. Hey, girl, they be having a good time. So Sadie said, don't tell her now. Don't forgive her. You're going to mess up her vacation. But I knew I had to forgive her, right? So I took her into the room, and with little breath that I had, I said, because I didn't know how she was going to react. Satan had my mind. I said, I just want to tell you that all my life I have resented you because you tried to turn me away from my father. And I love my father because inside of my soul, I had a yearning for my father, even as a kid. Even though my mother married another man before I was born so that I wouldn't be born out of wedlock. And he was a nice man. He was really nice to me, but I did not accept him as my father. I needed my birth father, my real father. My soul was empty for that. And I knew I wanted him. And I used to ask my grandmother all the time, who is my father? And she secretly told me one day who he was, but she made me promise not to tell my mother and other people. And my father was allowed to come see me from Indiana at times. And so I told my mother, I'm sorry for hating you. I realize now that you couldn't help yourself, but I'm suffering because I'm judging you. Anyone who has anger is judging. And anyone who judges is playing God. And anyone who plays God will never see the kingdom of heaven because you're your own God. That's why you have to repent. You have to forgive, right? And when I forgave my mother, to be honest with you, I was I could see already. Because once I realized, I do hate her, resent her. Because I thought I loved my mother. I felt that emotional love for her, but that's the love that comes from anger. It's not real love, right? And so when I told her, I'm sorry for resenting you, first time in my life, my mother told me about her life, and exactly what she had done to me, her mother had done it to her. I never knew about that. I thought my grandmother was an angel sent by God, but apparently not. And so when I forgave my mother, she told me what happened to her. She apologized. Most mothers won't apologize, but she said, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had done that. And so she told me about her life. I went and had a talk with my father, and that was 30 years ago. I have not been the same since. I woke up. I was blind with that anger. And then I woke up. I didn't realize I was asleep. I didn't know that I was blind. Reading the scriptures, going to church, naming and confessing Jesus, but I still had anger in my heart. I wasn't free. But I woke up, and all of that anger and fear and doubt and worry and insecurity and all of that stuff disappeared. And 30 years have gone by, and I've not had a sense. And I've gone through more hell in the last 30 years than I even can imagine one can go through. But I can now see that the battle is a spiritual battle. It's a warfare between good and evil. It's either evil or it's either good. There's no gray area. It's not about being black or white. It's not about being male or female. It's spiritual. We must be born again. And until you admit that you're wrong for being angry, because anger is the same thing as hatred. It's the same thing as resentment. It's the same thing. It's the same spirit. They just give it a new name down through the generations. And you would never, ever, ever, ever have perfect peace until you forgive. And the one you must forgive first is your mothers. Because the greatest secret in America is that the woman is not the problem. They've been telling you that it's the father who's the problem. It's just that the men hate their mothers and they end up marrying their mothers because you become attracted to what you hate. You become attracted to what you hate. That's why the men get married and they become boys after a while, and the wife becomes the mama. Have you ever noticed that? How many of you talk about to me? Y'all know y'all have noticed that. The woman pushing the man around, she make him do this and that. He has no opinion. If he does, it gotta get approved by her first. Right? Okay. Men are afraid of women because they have not overcome their mothers. And the women realize they're married to their daddy or something, a weak man. Women need strong men. Men who love what's right with all their heart, all their soul, and all their might. Men have to love God first, and then his love will work down through him to love his wife in the right way. Men, you gotta love God before you love your wife. Otherwise, you're loving your wife with mama's love, and that's destructive. She's gonna walk all over you. You do something for walking. She's gonna walk all over you. But yes, she wants a real man, because there's a perfect order to life. And that order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over the children. That love comes from above. Women don't have love to give. Women are receivers of love. Men receive it from Christ, who receive it from God, and he gives it to the woman and passes out to the children. How many disagree with that? You disagree? Wait a minute. And so, because men have not been born again, they have not gone to their mothers and forgiven her and returned to the fathers. Generation and generation of suffering. When I was growing up, it wasn't like that for the most part. Men understood the role, and so did the women. And they loved the role of being in the order of God. Nothing is going to work but that order. You can give all the money you want. You can give all the programs you want. White people can kiss up at the black folks all you want. It ain't going to work. They're going to still hate you. You can kiss up and say how wonderful they are and all that crap. It ain't going to work. You got to stand up. And the only way you stand up, you must be born again. And to the women, you need to apologize to your children for passing your anger down to them, for turning them away from their fathers, because they're suffering as a result of it. We must be born again. And once they go and forgive, God will forgive them, and they will return to their earthly father, because we have to love our earthly father, even if they're weak. You cannot resent your father at all, because how can you say you love God and resent your earthly father? You cannot do it, men and women. A lot of women are created in their mama's image. I hear a lot of ladies tell me all the time, I'm just like my mama, and I never wanted to be like her. She used to yell at me, now I'm yelling at my kids. She used to do this, now I'm doing the same thing. I'm just like my mama. You got to forgive your mother so God can forgive you and return you to your earthly father. And once you love your earthly father, you can love God. You can love him, but you're never going to love God and hate your earthly father. It's just not going to happen. He said there will come a day when I will return the children to the fathers and the fathers to the children. And that day is at hand. It's right now. That's why they have drag queens and everything else. They're looking for the love of a father. And they're not looking for mama's love. And mama, you got to tell them. Drop your ego and apologize to your kids for turning you away, because the warfare that the husband and wife is having is between them. It's not between the kids and them. But a lot of women tell the kids, your daddy was an alcoholic. Your daddy didn't love you. Your dads love their children. Fathers love their children, but the mothers will punish the children just to get back at the father. And then they say, well, what's wrong with you? Well, your daddy was an alcoholic. What did that have to do with me? Fathers love their children. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. And so, long story short, I've been called the N-word so much from telling the truth that I had told my staff some years ago, you know, I think I'll just change my middle name. I'm gonna call myself Jesse N. Peterson. Because they call me that all the time. And I used to have fear and doubt and worries, all that stuff, right? There was no way I would speak up because I had my mother's identity instead of my father's identity. And I remember when I would have to stand up for myself, I would be so scared, especially with women. I would be so scared. I'd be like, I'm gonna tell the truth this time. And the truth would come all the way up, and I'm like, glad that it coming. It'll get right here and lock in. It was just locked. Right. By the time I spoke up, it was so weak. It didn't even matter. Because I had fear. I have no fear. But I don't feel strong either. I just don't have fear. I have perfect peace in my life. So I started an organization called Bond, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny, because I realized that Black Americans are not suffering because of racism and sexism and all that crap. They're suffering because they've been turned away from their fathers. It happens in the home. And they need to forgive their mothers and return to the fathers so that they can return to God and things will change. It ain't about the race. It ain't about the race. It's a spiritual matter. There is no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobism, Islamophobism, deadbeat dadism. No isms. There ain't no isms. You're either of evil or you're influenced by good. You're influenced because it's spiritual. We are spirits created in the image of God, but because of that fall. And the fall is the moment you resent your parents, especially your father. The moment you resent, you fall away from God. Because kids are innocent. If you notice, they tell the truth. Oh, look at that lady. That lady look like a man. The kid will say it. And you be like, shut up. You want them to shut up. Are you all embarrassed that they tell the truth, right? But the kids tell the truth. They don't mean any harm. Well, once you're born again, it's going to be the same way. You're going to be like a child unto God. You're not going to hate anyone, but you're going to tell the truth because you love what's right with all your heart, soul, and mind. You got to come back to that order. You got to. That order is God in Christ. Men are over women. Women are not over men. But because you hate your mothers, women are gods to men. They treat women as though they're God. They're afraid to stand up to God. And women know it. That's why women are sex dealers. She's like, what? Have you ever heard of sex dealers?
What kind of
Men are
dealers?
sex addicts.
Sex.
Whenever a woman want to control a man, what does she do? I'll tell a man so old he can't do it anymore. But what does a woman do? She offers him sex. Okay, here he comes. What do you need, honey? And he give it to her just for the sex. And when the moment you have sex, especially out of wedlock, you become addicted. Have you noticed that? You're controlled by the woman. It's no different than hitting that cocaine or smoking pot. How many of you smoke pot? No pot smokers. And so we're teaching our men and women now, because we work with all, not to have sex out of wedlock. Because you need to maintain a level of consciousness, right? The moment you have sex out of wedlock, your consciousness go down, and now you're being controlled. You become addicted to sex. You already hate the woman. By hating your mother, you hate all women. And so by hating her, you're using her for sex. And she used the sex to control you with. She's the sex dealer, and you're the sex addict. But once you forgive, all that starts to change. Really, it really changes by itself. It's a spiritual matter. And once you come back by forgiving, all of your nasty stuff fall away. And the Ten Commandments become alive to you. It become real because God will cleanse you of all your unrighteousness when you repent and admit that you're wrong for hating. It's wrongful what has happened, but because you resent it, you are separated too, because we can't resent one another. We have to love one another, be honest with one another. So I started this organization, Bond, the Brotherhood's organization of a new destiny, and we are rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. Bringing back God's order. Ain't nothing else going to work for that. And so we are tutor, we counsel, we have a home for young men that we bring in from around the country. We help find jobs. It's so amazing what has happened. And I started an entrepreneur academy because a lot of these guys, I started to notice how talented they are. One half of them is very talented. The other half is gone. No more, no nothing, right? Just whatever, because that's all they've known since being on earth. They've been taught that in the public school system. Their family, the parents are no good. So they don't have those values. So we're showing them how to return to God so they become whole. And I've seen amazing things happen. So I started this Entrepreneur Academy where we're teaching them how to start businesses and things like that. I even started a credit union. Thank God, it was so amazing too. When we loan them the money and then they pay back with small interest because a lot of them don't have credit. Or in some cases, the mothers have messed up the credit. You know that, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know about white women, but the black mama put the cat name in credit if she could. She mess up her credit, your credit, no credit. And then she'll ask me, do you have any credit? So they put the kid's name in credit. So when the kids become adults, they can't even get anything because the mother messed up the credit. Isn't that amazing? Did the white people know about that? Did you know about that? See? He didn't even know. Y'all got to start kissing up at black people. Let them know the real thing. You know what I'm saying? And so it's been amazing. And we have a class that we're going to be graduating next month. And one thing I truly believe, and I learned this from my grandparents and also from Booker T. Washington. He was the founder of Tuskegee Institute. He taught that you should always own land. Own a little piece of land. A man should own a little piece of land, right? And so I've taught them to save 10% of every dime that they make so that when opportunity comes, they can invest into it. And I encourage them to buy land because once you buy land, you can always make money from that. So much you can do with it. So we have a class graduating, and we have about 4 or 5 of the guys in that's going to buy. I brought in a realtor. She's been my realtor lady for a long time. Really good. And she talks to them, and they all going to buy some land, looking for houses or some type of road. Isn't that amazing? And that's because they overcame the anger. When you overcome that anger, you can now see, you really wake up. And we're going to start a new class. We got to be out of this building that we are in. Down in Los Angeles, we've been here 29 years. Down in LA, they're turning those those business buildings into apartment buildings to make money, really. Low income people and all that crap. And so we got to move out by the end of December, and we're trying to raise $300,000. That's working. It's going to happen. So if you'd like to help us with that, thank you. We have never borrowed one dime from the government. No, one penny. Less money. The less government in your life, the better off you are. And so we work with all people. We work with all people, all ages, especially men, all men of all ages. So if you'd like to get involved, let us know. It's been amazing in the last 30 years of starting Bond. We're 29 years. If the Lord is willing and the creek don't rise, it'll be 30 years this February. I run this organization. And it's just been amazing. 2 things I want to tell you. I wish we could take some questions, but I guess we can't, right? I don't mind questions. I'm not like the other people.
What about we talk after that? We talk after it.
Okay, all right.
Otherwise, I'll give you questions.
See, everybody got questions. But let me just tell you, when I first started Bond, I had no idea what I was doing. 0 idea. But I just realized, God called me to realize that, you know what? This is what needed. Men got to return to God. They got to return to the earthly father. Men and women, but especially men, because the women need the men. So I started this organization, Bond, with no idea of what I was doing. I just wanted to get together, have a meeting, to talk about what I had realized, what God called me to realize, and that men need to forgive, right? So we had this first meeting. A bunch of guys showed up. And I told them, they started opening up. Yeah, that happened to me too. My mother, did this. And they are afraid to go to mama and say, I'm sorry for resenting you. Grown adult men and women are scared of mama. They think Satan tell them, oh, you're going to hurt her feelings, or she may start crying or curse you out, right? If you didn't have the fear, if you didn't have the anger, you would not have the fear. When anger is gone, you're free from it. And so they wanted another meeting, so we had another meeting. And then they said, hey, why don't we do more of this? I said, okay, let's start an organization. And we came up with bond. And then I founded a board. They say you need a board to operate an organization, right? And the board member was asking me, what's your 5-year plan? We need a 5-year plan. We need a 2-year plan. I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea what my plan, because I had no plan, really. And I'm telling you, 29 years for bond has gone by, and it's been amazing what has happened. I don't even have to think about it. I just get up each day, do what's in front of me, stay present with God, and just do what's in front of me. And my organization, as well as my life, has unfolded. It just unfolds by itself. It's like God has a plan that I can't even imagine. And I've also realized that the Old Testament is still alive and well.
Amen.
It's in the world. The Old Testament is in the world, right? The New Testament is in our hearts. It's a new world inside of us. There's a new reality. There's a new way of living. There's a new world in us. And you have to be born again so that he can bring you into that world. And you can start living from within instead of being without. You can literally live in this world and not be of it. You see all this madness, but you see that you're protected because now you are truly a son or daughter of God because he draws you in. The secret place is within. And unless you're born again, you ain't getting in. You just need to know that. As long as you have anger, you ain't getting in. It just ain't gonna happen because there's no anger in God's nature. It is perfect love. So I want you to think about that because you must be born again. And if you can admit you do have the anger, you are wrong for having that, go and forgive, and God will forgive you, and it will be amazing. We now have a radio show that is heard literally around the world by everybody. Hey there, mama. And I get calls from Africa. I even get calls from Mommy Africa. I get calls from Europe and Russia and Canada, all over America. I get calls from countries I didn't even know existed. And I'm like, how did you people hear about my show? In these new places, I can barely understand what they're saying. But the same thing happened to them. They fell into hate. They hate their mothers and they hate their fathers. And they go and forgive their mothers and forgive their fathers. Their lives change just like that. And no one ever tells them that. They don't tell them you must forgive before you enter into the kingdom. They're not told. It's mind-blowing that they're not told that. And then you can deal with the rest of the world in the right way. Because you'll be guided by the light of God. And there is a light inside of us. There is a kingdom of heaven inside of us. It's not out there. And the children of Satan would never know about it. So check us out at rebuildingtheman.com. Also, that's my radio show, the Father's Day TV. And thank you for whatever support you can do to help us out. It's amazing, folks, to see. I was looking at the father and son right here. They said, oh, the father told me, I'm here because of you. And seeing him with his 15-year-old son is mind-blowing. And this father, this son, with his son, because they go and they forgive and their lives change just like that. I'm telling you, it's amazing. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.